Welcome back. Okay, so this is just going to be a discussion here. Me and my good friend Parker here. How did you want to just do a quick introduction or what?
Well, you can say this is Parker, and we're just going to have a general conversation, just share some ideas, and see where it goes, see how this develops.
Well, mostly this is on slavery as far as this particular thing goes. And there's a lot here just because I think I got the idea originally from you, I think. We had talked about this a while ago. Something sparked. And I ended up getting very on fire or encouraged to do this because no one had, to my knowledge, no one had actually done this from the biblical perspective. And let's be realistic. Most people, they go straight into the African slave trade. They almost always forget or ignore or don't know about the Irish slave trade. And they go in straight to either to that or to the 1800s with the American slave trade. Which they're not wrong, but the biblical side of it is almost never ever touched on. Not even in church. Okay, in church they do talk about it. Yeah, I do remember sermons about that. Yeah. By the way, we're at a Mexican restaurant with lots of chips, so the crunching is from the chips.
And also the Mexican music in the background. So
try to ignore it.
Maybe we'll edit that out. I don't know.
Oh God, I'm not gonna try. You know that the music. My editing skills are garbage. I have to pay someone to go please edit. I will give you $50. So so being able to rip out an audio track is not something I know how, but there are processes and ways to make that work. I've seen videos of that, and it's very interesting, but I don't know how to do that. What I'll be doing is putting an image in the background. If I could do a video or something in the background, I would do that. Because some people love just watching stuff and listening, and other people, if you've, what was it? Thinking Ape. You've seen some of his videos, right? Thinking Ape.
Oh, Thinking Ape. Yeah, I have.
Yeah, because he's just one image and then that's it. Then you've got other people like Sandman and they just they have an image and they swap it up every 2 to 3 minutes. So I kind of bounce back from those two. If I could concentrate, I would just simply record and drive, because the idea behind that is we're going from places to places in life. So we're never actually going to be still all the time. And that works fairly well for the most part. Yeah. Entrepreneurs with Cars gave me that idea. The guy he's got his lane. He sticks with single mothers because he's been through that. And I think other people give him shit for that because, they call him a grifter, trying to make money off of that. I'm like, okay, well, let me go back to what some other guy says. You know something well, why not make money off of it? Never just give it away for free. So for him, that's a business. Once I understood that, I was like, all right, cool, whatever. Do your own thing. Can't always, live off the kindness, unfortunately. If you could live off kindness, more people should if they could. Let me put it that way. Anyway, when it comes down to biblical slavery, what parts did you talk about last time? What parts stood out to you?
Well.
May I offer you some more Coke, sir?
Nope.
Yeah, some more Coke, please.
Well, yeah, thank you.
And, what stood out last time is that when you brought us to, I think when we came up with the concept, you came up with the concept of exploring biblical slavery. Like I say, that required us to, do some research, so we could, and also to find, maybe choose a specific point or points to focus on. So
we need to do that when talking about finances and the church as well, business in the church, money in the church in general, because that's a good topic too. If you're still up for that.
Yeah, kind of, for example, pulling from, let's talk about the LDS Church. They received heavy flack, and maybe still some residual flack even now, because the LDS Church has over $100 billion in cash. Now, mind you, that's the cash. That's not including the principal and the interest that's accumulating on that. The tens of millions that's accumulating on that 100 million. $100 billion. And
that requires research to look into to say, the statistics and all that.
But it doesn't. For example, like I said, it doesn't require too much research. I mean, it's public knowledge that the LDS Church, they own businesses, they own farms, they own communications company, they own a newspaper manufacturing company. There is the, I like to say, the business side, the corporate side of the LDS Church, and some people, critics or detractors, they take issue with that because I guess they feel that they should. I don't know. I guess the main issue is that they feel that they should be paying more taxes on it instead of using their tax exemption or whatever. And I personally don't see a problem with it because of the monumental work that they do and contribute to society on a global basis. But I digress from that. So back to
that is a very good but very long topic. So it's good.
Yeah.
I'll save all my thoughts for that for later because it's just really good, really deep. Who knows? Could go for like an hour.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
So, but back to what you were saying about biblical slavery, and I believe you said that God condones it to an extent.
When I started looking more into it, once you start getting past the do's and don'ts, the other rules, Leviticus and Numbers, when they talk about how to do things, how to handle things, when and what not to do, especially with relationships. The thing is, I started noticing, and I did talk some of it in the other video, as far as my surprise in seeing just like the fact that there are rules there, and it's almost like God stepped in to say, I'm overseeing this, and no matter what position you're at, you're going to be accountable to someone, either me or to whoever is in charge of you. And the fact is, chattel slavery seems to be the system. There are three different types of slavery out there, and chattel is the one that's in the biblical side, which really made me scratch my head when I started looking into it. In fact, that was actually passed on to my dad, so I give him credit for that. It's almost like a barter system. A barter system with protection. And after the 7th year, the year of Jubilee, that's when all the slaves will be officially released. And these slaves, quote unquote, because I don't think that word was actually used back then, going back hundreds, thousands of years, I think they used a different word. I'm not sure why, because I didn't do anything with Greek or anything like that. Language is never a specialty of mine.
Okay, so let me jump in right there. So, maybe possibly the term slave is an appropriate term since we're going back, several thousand years. Maybe it's not really slavery is the correct term. It may be, and a better way to put it is a code of conduct. So to speak. You say, because going back to what you said earlier, this is how you conduct yourself. This is how you do this. This is how you do that. It sounds more like etiquette or code of conduct than slavery.
I was going to say the Code of Hammurabi is something that goes into it, and I think the Code of Hammurabi is the oldest code that actually talks about this sort of thing, about how slaves should be handled and what happens if one escapes, how you should go about capturing it. I forget the word that they used, but I think there were 2 codes. One of them, like I said, was a code of Hammurabi, but I don't remember what the other one was. One of them had a very serious stance that if you were harboring someone who escaped, you're supposed to kill that person and the slave, or something along that.
Okay. Okay, so we have to
Oh
go.
man, I don't have the websites in front of me. I do have them up on tabs on my computer. All of that stuff is still up on my tabs.
Okay, so now we have to go back even further. What was the premise of having these slaves in the first place?
The premise was to show off how much wealth, how much responsibility. Basically, it translated over to, I have power, I have authority. This is who I am in a sense. So that's the best indication that I got from, as far as a very couple second summary. There's a lot more into it than that, and it may actually differ from society to society. They may actually view that a little bit differently. Like if you have 1 slave, you're poor, versus if you have 5 or 6. Maybe they use it as sort of like a currency or something. I'm not sure.
Okay. Well, that's something we're definitely going to require some more research. And
that's not necessarily biblical slavery, though.
And yeah, you know what? I'm actually going to have to refer to one of my colleagues who's very well versed in history. So I'm going to have to make some notes and run it by him and get his input, or get him to point me to some source material.
So, this is a little bit off track, but any sort of source material that someone can link me to, and this has literally happened a couple of hours ago with that. I did a video on the fallen angels and the cryptids, and someone just spewed out a whole list of really good juicy stuff. I was like, thank you so much, because here's the thing. Going in between the scripture and going in between society, that actually falls in perfectly, because I could be like, here's a biblical source, here's a non-biblical source that actually ties in with something relevant. That's not simply 100% found within only the books in the Bible. It's possibly relevant to our lives. And I want to say, this whole topic here is relevant to our lives simply because people refuse to let slavery die as a whole. General E. Lee, and there was another general in the Civil War who basically was against putting up these monuments to remember the Civil War, is because the comment that he made as far as people need to heal, the land needs to heal, and having these memories, the memorials up, actually kind of works against people and the country healing as a whole. And I was like, yeah, that's a really good point. That's getting a little off track, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pause.
Yep. There we go. All right. Hitting the pause, hitting the play, having to go back on. Okay. Oh boy. Honestly, I kind of forgot where we stopped at before there. Anyway, with the whole slavery thing, it's interesting to note that there were rules, there was structure put up in place, and no matter what book of the Bible ever actually talked about it, it was almost always in the same tone, the same way, the same, almost the same authority even. Okay, so I think, I'm going to jump back here, I think it was talking about the cryptids, angels, and I basically said someone dropped me a whole list there. So, yeah. Jumping back just a bit here, if your friend has other resources or whatever, send it to me. I'll add it in there, because there's a ton of resources that are missing, and I know I'll need to do my video of the whole biblical slavery. I'll need to add more to it, possibly to the point where I'll need to do it again, because there is a lot of stuff there. However, as far as anything related to the books of the Bible, and even some of the books that are not included, the Book of Enoch comes to mind. I haven't read it, still need to. It's on the to-do list. That's a perfect example of a book that could work. It's just not in the Bible per se. Yeah, so whatever. the point is, if there's more, send it me, and I'll take a look. I'll most likely add it up there too. There's a lot there. Basically, we're scratching the surface of this, so to speak. And it's really hard not jumping back to some of the stuff that other people have already talked about, just because it's common and there's a lot there.
Yep, definitely. I mean that is a topic that can literally you can discuss. you could have endless conversations, but like I say, when we address this, we're gonna have, it's important to have, I guess, concise and an exacting topic exacting points that we want to cover. Yeah. And of course, and also, be mindful of, people want to come up with rabbit trails and say, well, what about this, and try and easily veer you off course and get you to another, another whole conversation that's it's on the same topic, but not exactly on the point of where we're trying to come from. So we got to be mindful of that, and also that we don't veer off and digress into something that's not from our main points as well. So
that is one of my main weaknesses there as far as discussion. Sometimes it's so good you come across a little tidbit that you're just like, ooh, let's just go down here for a little bit. And the next thing you know, you completely switch gears. It's a good topic, and it adds, it's more of like, instead of it being an add-on, it goes into a why and it splits off into another entirely separate area.
Yeah, and like I said, that could be, and like I said, there's nothing wrong with that. And like I say, for what we want to talk about, like I say, not to say we can't discuss that in the future when we just give that its own separate topic, its own separate stage to stand on. So I mean, it's not to say we can't do that, but it's just important that once we get on certain points, we stay strictly on those certain points, and let people give their feedback. And of course, they're gonna digress into their whatever. I like to say digress into their feelings, because it is going to be a touchy situation where people can easily just off gate become extremely emotional. And
they start feeling, stop thinking.
Yeah, exactly. The feelings take over, and logic just shuts down.
It's like, hold on, what did the scripture say about all this? Slow down.
And then you're gonna have the Bible thumpers and they call them the Bible battlers. They want to Bible battle with you, and they want to have them, and they say, oh well, this says that, and this says. Blah,
they
blah,
make
blah,
some
blah.
very good points too, and it's just like, oh, I hear you, but do you understand how you're coming across and what way you're doing? Like, I am not your opponent. I am not your enemy. Like, yeah. I understand it, but please try to hear me out here. We're on the same team. Well, you're not seeing it from the same point here. Like,
well, and of course, you have to be mindful, and again, that requires discernment when people want to start cherry picking one particular verse out of one particular book of the Bible. They want to, so and because it's easy to cherry pick and make a reference to in the Bible and then give your own interpretation and possibly take it out of context. I like to say what verse, what says after that verse and what's said before it, before you just pick that one particular scripture. And so again, we have to, people want to battle, and then you got people who want to just babble. So
they want to babble, or they want to have the last word. They want to be the one with the most points. Like, my stories are always relevant.
The last word freak, as I like to call them.
Like, some of these guys are awesome, but it's like the one up, they cannot resist. They must one up you with a different story. I'm just like, this is not a competition. This is not. It's frustrating. It's more aggravating because it's like, you're a cool guy.
Although,
but I can't. We got to stop. Like, we need to stop here because we can't keep going on.
Yeah, once people start getting emotional and argumentative, I like to say, okay,
It's the argumentative part where it's just like,
you've reached
yeah.
your psychological barrier, and now you're off into your feelings, and also if like if you don't agree with me, then we're enemies all of a sudden. I was like, no, it shouldn't be that way. We can have intelligent, objective conversation,
dialogue.
and we can and without risking, whatever level the relationship is with that person, we should be able to have the maturity and intelligence to agree to disagree. But of course, living in when you live in a over the top social snowflake, self-absorbed society.
Self-absorbed. I was going for the self, because this society, there's a lot that gears towards social influencers, the self, and which is kind of points to a lot of the problems. And this is a little bit side topic here, but pointing to some of the problems as far as with our families, the communities. It's more about the self than it is about the community itself.
Well, and also
the individual than the community.
It leads to a psychological breakdown in maturity as far as intellectual, interpersonal communication skills, where we should be able to have a mature conversation,
even if we disagree.
Even if we disagree, and still be friends or still be associates or whatever the level of the relationship is. And again, digressing, kind of, added on to that side note, this is why, if we made it over the top about ourselves and being social snowflakes, that even if you can back it up with fact, we've come to a place in society where our feelings override facts. I'll land that plane there.
let me add one little further tidbit to this that makes it more interesting. Co-op games like Bloodborne from the whole Dark series, well, from Software, where they started the whole Dark Souls series, and I'm going down here because this is important. You can tackle very difficult, extremely difficult topics together, where there could be some, what do they call that? Friendly fire? You can have a little bit of friendly fire, sure, but you're not trying to kill the other person. You're trying to be like, my bad, let me just go over there a little bit. We'll swing from the opposite directions. And I want to say, it's very interesting when you summon in an enemy because, hey, I ran out of friendly, being able to summon friends. You can go about it a different way, and this is completely a fun side topic. You can summon in enemies, do something special, turn them into allies to go beat specific enemies or bosses. I've done that quite a few times in Dark Souls 3. It is hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. But whatever. The point is, don't do too much friendly fire. It's so dumb. I'm sorry, I'm still a gamer at heart. I can't let some of this stuff go. I'm just like, ooh, I see the gamer relevance. And I just go down it.
It's all good. So, I mean...
Well,
that's the beauty of being able to relate, different aspects of our life to a topic. But like I said, back to the topic of.
I mean, biblical slavery. They had that part at the very end where, like, if you want to, you still love your master. And I think they used the word love. You could permanently bound yourself to this, and there was a whole passage lined out how that would work out. And beyond the year of Jubilee, the 7th year, you weren't actually going to be able to go free. That was actually denied you. So doing something like that out of love, it's like people are like, how is that even a thing?
Well, is it love or is it dependence?
Okay, let me.
Okay,
they had male and female slaves, and the whole thing is families popped up out of that. So you love your master or mistress so much, you're like, I actually want to be with you because they treated you so well. You're like, it's like people like when they go, they lived in prison most of their life, and they're like, I don't know what to do when they get out. They're like looking around confused. They commit a crime, go right back to prison because they don't know of any other life outside.
Because it goes right back to what I said. Is it love or is it dependence?
It could be
because okay, I'm gonna go long here. This is a particular piece of psychology that that should be observed in multiple situations. So, like I said, even though, let's go back to the biblical part, biblical slavery. Okay, fine, men and women were both enslaved. Okay, fine, these male and female quote slaves. Okay, yeah, they human nature. They get together, they procreate, they have children. Okay, fine, but overall, all of them, whether it's the man and the woman and the children, are still dependent upon the master. It's not love. Or you could call it love out of a sense of dependence, because the master is taking care of their needs. So naturally, you're going to develop some quotation. I call it dependent love, and that's really what it is. You want to combine the terms, but overall, the premise, the foundation, is dependence. Okay, so let's go a little bit further. Go back to your other example. You said when individuals are imprisoned or in a version of modern enslavement, they've been out of society for years or decades, and they're no longer familiar with how society functions. They're not familiar with how the job market and how society has changed.
They have no family too. That plays a big factor.
And so thus, when they get out, the world is foreign to them. They've been in such an encapsulated bubble and a controlled environment where they're fed, they have a warm bed. They can depending on the prison and the level of security, they can watch TV, they can exercise. They're safe. Pretty relatively safe. If it's like a minimum security, or they don't have to worry about being raped or stabbed to death or whatever. Again, depending on what type of prison you're in. So let's not ignore that particular piece of conditioning or situation. But let's just say it's a minimum security. You're safe. You get guaranteed meals. You can shower. You can watch TV. Go to the library. You can even get a degree if you want to. And so thus when you get out, you develop that dependence. You develop that structure where you don't have to think about it. You just do it. And so now you're thrust back into the world like, okay, you're smart. Go figure it out. A lot of these dudes and women just simply shut down, and they're like, no, that's just too much responsibility. I'd rather commit another little light crime, do some breaking and entering, and be justified to be rearrested and gladly put back into the prison system, because I don't have to take any responsibility. I don't have to think about it. I'm safe. Okay, let's take it. Okay, so now let's take it to another step. Let's do this final piece of example. Say you've been kidnapped. Okay, and say you're missing. Let's just say you were a young boy, a teenage boy. Okay, you've been kidnapped. People are looking for you. Okay, let's say let's pull from real world examples where these individuals have been missing for months, or they've been under this person's captor for months, or even a year or more. You've learned to become dependent upon that person. You've actually in some cases
if you
developed.
brainwashed a kid.
That's what I'm saying. You've actually learned to be dependent upon this person, and actually you may actually grown to have some type of connection or camaraderie with them.
If there's camaraderie, there's agreement. There is something there that not just simply that the kid obeys out of fear, but compels him out of interest or something else.
Yeah.
Why would he want to leave?
Exactly. So again, if the captor has tapped into something that the individual that he's kidnapped wants or desires or has brought out, and in a way he's kind of broken that child's will, or that teenager's will, or even a young adult's will, where that person is no longer being held against their will. They now want to be with you, and that's a common factor. Where again,
I would say manipulation would be a part of that some way if they ever got to that stage.
Well, it's no different than being in the prison system. When you go into the prison system, you're manipulated as well. You're manipulated that you can't escape. You will be punished. You will be beat, or you will be put in solitary confinement. You will lose your privileges. Is that not a form of manipulation?
It's more of a punishment system for sure.
Okay, what's the difference between being kidnapped? You try to kidnap me. You try to run away from me. I'll beat the shit out of you.
Kidnapping.
I'll tie you up.
kidnapping is more associated with making money in some way, shape, or form.
Not necessarily. Not in all cases.
When it comes down to sex slavery, I would have to say I think it's for the money.
That's a particular subsection. If I just kidnap you because I want you for me.
If I was like a 9-year-old kid or whatever, and we were in some country where there's a lot of wars and conflicts, the child soldier thing would actually apply more likely than not.
Okay, well that's a different niche example. But go ahead.
When kidnapping occurs, it's either money or child soldiers that I am currently aware of as far as the two major factors on why the kidnapping will take place. Ransoming, I think, falls under the whole, we want money, give us money, you'll get your kid back. Beyond those three, I don't know.
Or the person kidnaps the individual for his own personal sexual gratification.
There was something that you said that I want to go back, that I want to go here, that actually made me realize something that was a possibility. I'm going to start off with something a little bit unusual. I don't believe there were many horses back in the biblical times, but I think slavery could have happened in the sense that there was profit involved. There was a sense of not just simply you're going to go free after X amount of years. You're not just you can rely on us to go pay your debt and your bills and all that, but also you could leave a more rich individual than when you started off. To the point, those back then probably didn't live long. I remember reading and hearing stuff about how the average age was about the 40s and 50s. Mm-hmm. So if something were to happen, I could imagine how some things would have been passed down to the slaves. Maybe to the women. I'm not sure. I'm not sure who would actually have more status, but I'm pretty sure it would have been the women. There was some scripture that was talking about how elder women were
matriarchs.
I don't know how much power the matriarchs would have had, but yes, older women were definitely respected, if nothing else. Chances are they would have to deal with the finances. Genghis Khan married off his daughters and to the neighboring countries, which is how he was able to get a strong empire, and his daughters were extremely smart. But he would have his sons join his army, and end up getting killed. So that's how he got his kingdom. And this was around the Roman Empire, give or take. I don't remember what the specific years were. So something like that, yeah, the women were important because they were tied to Genghis Khan himself. Like, you disobey the daughter, you're going to have to deal with the father at some point.
Okay.
That ties in with the biblical aspect, but obviously the Bible doesn't really talk much about Asia except for Peter and Paul going out. Well, some of the disciples and the apostles going out east to preach, to witness,
all right,
and to start churches. They started churches going east and west.
Okay.
And also, I want to say the strongest argument for slaves, as far as how that goes, would be the letter about Onesimus. And I believe Titus or Philemon. I can't remember which book. You remember which book?
No, I don't recall which book.
Titus or Philemon is all I can remember, but it's one of those two.
Okay.
This is off the top of my head. We talked about it in one of the Tuesday men Bible study that I go to, somewhat briefly. It was brought up as a strict point about how to handle each other. And I forget the exact point that was made, but it was basically how to treat others in this scenario and all that.
Okay.
I know for a fact what Jesus did was revolutionary about how women are just as important as men. And that was something that was unheard of back then. So something like slavery, that goes back even further to the point that so even if you're not going to be recognized as an individual, like you're not going to be on the same level as even a woman, you're basically like property. the thing is, you're guaranteed basic rights. Like, there are some places where if you were going to mistreat your slave, you will be killed. You know, a life for a life. You were never simply worthless, even if you were in this particular stage, or station, I should say. I think some slaves were very respected. In fact, I want to say Joseph, the story of Joseph, with Potiphar and him being the ward, made the ward, he was still actually a slave himself. But he earned respect, he earned authority, and he was able to interpret dreams because of his ability. His ability and his connection with God. And everything worked out in a way that everyone in the entire country of Egypt itself, it's amazing when you think about how where things went. But it all started off with Joseph being made a slave himself. So it's a part of our journey, it's a part of our story, but it's obviously the part that we hate. We're like, yeah, forget that. We're moving on. We don't want to have anything to do with it. And to a point, they are right. It's almost like so we consider it a blemish, a dark spot in our history and past. But for God, He's going to see that as most likely as something entirely different. I mean, go ahead.
I mean, well, again, we have to make sure we have to make sure that our interpretation is correct. So I mean, we don't want to just kind of do like a general statement and said, oh, God condones slavery. Again, we have to make sure that our interpretation is correct. Make sure that our source material is coming from like I said, credible source, and the interpretation of that source is correct.
Make your interpretation be the Word of God. Because your interpretation, my interpretation, it could be off. Our understanding, what we believe, what we see, what we remember, all this plays a part as far as how we remember and what we believe. Mm-hmm. But I mean, we could still theoretically be off. I will say this though, the NIV version, and I believe this is to be true, other people said that NIV has been changed over the past couple of years. And I'm like, well, if that's the case...
No, so it's fine. That's fine.
If that's the case, you could very well be believing something that's not even scriptural. Because the Bible has been changed by people who don't like certain things, certain words. They want to soften things up. They want to change the message. Because here's the thing, accuracy or relevancy. That, I believe, is what the whole entire point of with Scripture. You can be accurate, be like King James, where they're very specific, but it's like the these and the thous. Ooh, that's hard. That's hard to swallow.
Yeah, well, it's pretty much all our Bibles have been edited and are, lack of a better way, an abridgment from the so-called quote original Bible. The King James Version is an abridgment. The Schofield Bible is an abridgment and a reinterpretation. All the way down to quote the Gay Bible. That's done come out and trying to use God's word to manipulate, to condone, and encourage certain behaviors. So I mean, that said, we have to be mindful of the source material and our interpretation, and make sure that where we're coming from is as accurate as possible, and also in condolence with which is correct with the topics that we want to address. So that's where I want to come from. My main thing is just being accurate and also being prepared for any type of backlash or counter argument or whatever.
Just being wrong, being off.
Or even be prepared to be off. But I'm confident that we will make certain points.
I know I
that'll
can
be
be
accurate.
Off. My heart can be in the right place, but I know for a fact I can be off on some of this simply because I forgot or I made a mistake somewhere down the lines.
That's why we'll have outlines. What you see?
That's like 20 cards right there. Please tell me they're not all credit cards. I'm sorry. I did. Okay, you pulled that out. I was like, that's the big stack there.
I was like,
holy jeez.
yeah, that's like 500,000 in credit. I'm joking.
I've got a debit card and a credit card, and I want to say I have another credit card somewhere, but it's tied to PayPal. I deactivated my PayPal, so that's gone. I would need to redo it or whatever. Oh man, that I'm not touching that because PayPal. Ooh. People who do not like PayPal do not like them for a very good reason. It's not always going to be personal. Like we had bad experience with them. Oh.
One day I want this to be nothing but credit cards, so preferably business credit.
You're going to have to tell me how that's going to work out.
Well,
It's going to... Oh, my... I won't go down there. That's too much there. Holy jeez.
all right, hold on. We're going to pause this.
Yeah, so we took the conversation outside, paused it, and...
Now we're behind a running vehicle with the loud motor running.
Yeah. With some behind the scenes fun stuff, a little additions. I wish I would have recorded some of that too, because you're talking about some really good points about meekness inside.
We can start it again.
Well,
If you want
meekness
to.
itself is another whole. I feel like it's best under another whole topic. And I swear I'm going to, if we talk about that, I'm going to be talking about the meek stone from Magic the Gathering. I kid you not. Every time I'm thinking about that, half the time you're talking about meek. It's the other half of that would be the strength stone. Meek stone, the strength stone,
Yeah.
or sorry, might stone. I'm not going to get into it, but some old history that wizards finally are like, let's dig up some stuff from the past and bring out some cards and make this stuff relevant again. And everyone's like, we hate you so much because you are releasing all these cards way too quickly. It's like we're finally getting settled in, enjoying this set, and now you're just shoving something new down our throats. That's in the past year or two, but whatever. Anyway, talking about meek, great topic, but I'm stuck on something else entirely. It really is. Anyway, it's just a fun, casual conversation about something more serious. Once I get the video edited up a little bit nicer, I'm going to be releasing that and this conversation so it could be listened to. The conversation will be coming first before the video. The video itself, I want it to be better than how it was recorded. So I'm going to put some time, a little bit of money into it to make it be decent. For me, this isn't just simply a hobby. It's something that I do because I actually genuinely enjoy it. And because I'm kind of pissed off that the churches would be like, let's not cover this stuff and, talk about it later. When's that? We'll let you know. And it never happens. Ever, I swear. I've asked so many times, hey, let's talk about this later. And the next thing you know, I'm like, what happened to this conversation that was supposed to take place 5 years ago?
Well, that's a situation of like, do you understand what I'm not saying?
Oh, jeez.
That's where that comes in.
You understand what I'm... Yeah, well, here's the thing. When I was younger, I used to be dense. I used to be like... It would just go right over my head. Anything along the lines of that, go right over my head. I am very much... What's the word? Very much... I gotta see it. I'm very... I'm hands-on. I'm not verbal. Visual, thank you. I'm very visual and I'm very hands-on. So there's a lot that used to just go right over my head. Memes were the worst, I swear. It took me, 10 years to actually understand what a meme was.
Well, like I say, it takes time to develop the fine art of reading between the lines. So I was very bad with the. Do you understand what I'm not saying? Are you? This is a. Oh, this is a. Oh. So this is a.
Yeah, that was not fun.
In between the line reading required on this. So I was like, okay. So it took me a while. To master that. And
oh my word. my whole line of thought just got thrown off by that truck. Jeez, awful. Anyway, thank you. Appreciate it. I'm going to end here. Well, we're going to have to do this again later.